Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. No tighter measures at this time. The Prime Minister's latest comments in the wake of rising COVID-19 cases. Public health experts worried about increasing hospitalizations. Sports, no fans for Reggae Boys' next two World Cup qualifiers at the National Stadium. I'm Anthony Lugg. Here are the details. There has been a further increase in hospitalizations due to COVID-19. The Health Ministry says 577 people have been hospitalized. 54 are severely ill and 20 are critically ill. There are 14,962 active cases on the island. 1,098 cases were recorded on Tuesday from 2,096 samples. 33 of the cases were imported. The overall case count is now 116,084. The positivity rate is now 60.3%. 200 people have recovered from the respiratory illness, bringing the total recoveries to 67,681. Meanwhile, 4 more people have died from the respiratory illness. To date, a total of 2,555 people have died. As COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations continue to rise, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is insisting that he does not intend to put tighter measures in place at this time. There have been calls from some medical professionals for more restrictions on movement to minimize the pressure on hospitals treating COVID-19 patients. But speaking at this morning's ceremony for the official opening of the new Foreign Affairs Ministry headquarters, Mr. Holness said the current measures are sufficient.
Now, there are those who would want to see tighter rules, but we have to reach a reasonable balance. Tighter rules could mean less work, it could mean less economic activity, less income, and that could also mean more social problems. But nevertheless, I believe we all understand that it is now down to us.
And public health experts are insisting that hospitalizations will continue to increase if the Prime Minister does not act now. That issue was raised on the morning agenda on Power 106. Cody and Barrett reports.
Public health specialist Professor Peter Figueroa says it's prudent that the government move to tighten measures to reduce the spread of COVID-19 amid the fourth wave of the virus. He says while a lockdown is not necessary, a tightening of the curfew hours should be considered. Professor Figueroa is also in favor of reimposing the mandatory work-from-home policy and a reduction of the gathering limit.
The force of infection with Omicron is very high, and therefore it's highly transmissible. And what we are seeing is that the frontline workers in the health sector are getting ill, and it means that the health sector is under a lot of stress. So it would have been better to send a signal as well as take measures that would slow the surge.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has declared that there will be no more lockdowns to curb the spread of the virus. And with COVID-19 admissions now above 500, Professor Figueroa says the hospital situation could get worse if swift measures are not implemented.
It would have been better if there were some tightening earlier, but my personal view would be that it would still help. The hospital situation could get worse than it is, and we would want to avoid that.
In the meantime, Director of Family Health Services in the Health Ministry, Dr. Melody Ennis, says every effort is being made to ensure that the COVID-19 vaccination program is not affected by the current staff shortage, which has coincided with the surge in the cases of the virus.
So although we are having less persons, we are still trying our very best to maintain the vaccination services.
Cody and Barrett, TVJ News.
And effective today, hospitals across the island will accept only emergency cases. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says this is due to the overwhelming of the health facilities as COVID cases continue to climb and more healthcare workers are getting sick. Dr. Tufton says if Jamaicans don't need to visit these facilities, they should stay away.
Based on the hospitalization numbers, over 700 beds and counting, with an admission of about 100 additional beds, additional persons per day, and a releasing of persons that are less than the amount that we are administering. We are caught in a challenge, a dilemma, if you will, where we have to prioritize. And when you prioritize in public health, it means you save those who are in dire need of help, and those who are not as serious but still needing work help support, they will have to wait.
Meanwhile, the health minister says the take-up rate for COVID-19 vaccine remains low as much more vaccines are going to waste.
Every month now. So I'm sure there'll be some expiring this end of month. I don't have the numbers. And so we just discard them once they are and move on to the other. The truth is we have a lot of vaccines in stock and getting more. So vaccines availability is not our issue now. As it relates to the younger cohort below 12.
As the World Health Organization urges double masking for greater protection against the Omicron strain of the coronavirus, at least one basic school in Manchester says it continues to struggle to get its younger students to keep on their masks. Principal of the MISPA Early Childhood Institution, Elizabeth Powell, says the 3-year-olds are the most challenging. Meanwhile, since resuming face-to-face teaching last November, she says teachers are now seeing a turnaround in academic performance.
We have been having to revert to a lot of revision. But like I said, they are excelling and they are progressing, and that is excellent for us.
However, the school needs outside help and financial support in one particular area.
Because of the fact that we have been home for a while, if you can just zoom into our play area there, we are asking for a bit of help from whichever sponsoring bodies that it may be to help us to upgrade and just to refresh our play area.
A women's group in the community invited the French ambassador recently to partner with the school on its breakfast program. In other news, an 18-month-old baby died this morning at the Black River Hospital in St. Elizabeth, where she was admitted after being left in a car for 8 hours on Monday. The child is the daughter of 2 police officers assigned to the St. Elizabeth Police Division. TVJ News was informed that the policewoman took the baby to work on Monday for the child's father to take her to a daycare. However, the child was left inside the car from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. while the policeman carried out his duties. The baby was later found unconscious. The Integrity Commission has identified several breaches which were committed by the Jamaica Fire Brigade in its procurement of a payroll software. The finding, which is contained in a report tabled in the House of Representatives on Tuesday, noted that the Jamaica Fire Brigade did not get the best value for money. An upgrade to a payroll software for the Jamaica Fire Brigade, but checks made found that the system was dysfunctional. It led to the then Office of Contractor General investigating the matter following an anonymous complaint on April 25, 2015. The complaint stated that not only was the software dysfunctional, but there was no procurement for its acquisition. Now, in its report tabled on Tuesday, the Integrity Commission said there was no formal procurement and contract administration records. It also found that the Fire Brigade did not receive best value for money because the system could not meet the needs of the Fire Brigade and certain terms and conditions were not in the contract that would facilitate testing of the software and dispute resolution mechanisms. Director of Investigations at the Commission, Kevon Stevenson, says the contract was entered into between the Jamaica Fire Brigade and TurboPay Limited on July 24, 2013, using the direct contracting procurement method. He says that is permissible given that the company provided the initial software which was being upgraded. However, he believes due consideration should have been given to the evaluation of the sole invited bid to ensure its suitability as it relates to the needs of the procuring entity and obtaining best value for money. Mr. Stevenson says there's no evidence to indicate that an adequate needs assessment and due diligence process was undertaken by the Jamaica Fire Brigade prior to and upon receiving the proposal submitted by TurboPay Limited. He also says he saw no evidence to support TurboPay Limited's assertion that it rectified the anomalies identified by the Jamaica Fire Brigade in the implementation and operation of the upgraded Payroll software system. In the meantime, the Director of Investigations has recommended that a forensic audit be carried out regarding claims made by TurboPay Limited that it is owed almost $170,000 in relation to the contract. He's also calling for the accounting officer of the Jamaica Fire Brigade to immediately implement the necessary administrative mechanisms to ensure that proper records are kept in relation to the implementation of projects.
And it's time for a break. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News and thanks for staying with us. It was a lucky escape for one Portland resident when he returned home to see a boulder inside his house. The large stone had rolled down the hill during construction work on the Draper's leg of the Southern Coastal Highway project. Krista Campbell has that story.
If I never the Almighty, then me no really dare talk to you now.
Vernon Sewell says he's still in shock after what he saw when he returned home in Draper's, Portland last Tuesday. He explained he couldn't enter his house at first.
Because the door blocked with debris from this big girl, big stone where she come inside, tear her from off the roadworks man them, come down and mash up the place. So I couldn't come inside. I have to walk around and jump over the wall to come inside. And when I come in and see all the things them mash out. Where you see the stone stand, there was a glass there, you know, and my bed mash up, my radio mash up.
Now the Portland leg of the Southern Coastal Highway project has been taking place on the road above Mr. Sewell's house, and he insists that's what caused the boulder to roll down the hill, knocking down several banana trees before landing inside his bedroom. He questions whether enough safety measures were in place at the construction site.
In a Blue Lagoon, then put some things, a barrier, to stop things from roll down off of the hill, but they don't put down no safety down here, so. Maybe, me don't know if them feel like say no one no live down here, so but people live here.
Still, he points out that residents had a hand in what could have been a tragedy for him.
If the iron them was there, where the scrap iron people they never take away, that this wouldn't happen, you know.
He says the police have taken his statement on the matter and members of the construction team have visited to assess the damage, but there's no word yet on any compensation or the next plan of action. In the meantime, he says the cleanup process is a challenge and he's not comfortable having to sleep in a hammock on his veranda every night. I contacted the National Works Agency, which is overseeing the highway project, but up to news time, there was no update on what's being done about the incident. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
And it's time now for the Business Minute. Here's Cody and Barrett.
Local businesses were more optimistic about investment prospects at the end of 2021. Head of Market Research Limited, Don Anderson, says that during the October to December period, more businesses thought it was a good time to invest.
Businesses are generally pretty bullish about investment, but those numbers have fallen. But let's look at the detail. 12.3% fourth quarter 2020 felt it was a bad time to invest. That fell to 6.5% in 2021. So we can see there is a lessening of the negative. Let's look at the top. 50% in fourth quarter of 2020 said it was a good time to invest.
UK consumer price inflation has surged to the highest level in 3 decades. Inflation surged to 5.4% in the 12 months to December, up from 5.1% the month before. The last time inflation was higher was in March 1992, when it was 7.1%. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And we go now to a preview of what's coming up in this evening's health report.
In this evening's health report, we look at the COVID-19 vaccine.
Vaccination is the major preventive strategy, and I encourage everyone to get on board. The quicker we can achieve herd immunity, then the whole world will improve. So it's not only our local setting, it's an international effort.
That's the health report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's Healthy Living tip. Find out how to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Get vaccinated even if you have already had COVID-19. If you're getting a COVID-19 vaccine that requires 2 doses, be sure to schedule an appointment for your second shot. And before taking the vaccine, speak to your healthcare provider to address or clarify any concerns you have.
For a look at the top regional and international stories, here's Sandy Williams.
In the region, Barbadians are casting their ballots for a new government today, 3.5 years after they had overwhelmingly elected the Barbados Labour Party BLP to victory in 2018. Prime Minister Mia Mossi called the poll 18 months before the constitutional deadline, saying that she needed a unified country. Barbados recently became the latest CARICOM member state to become a republic. A total of 108 candidates representing 7 political parties and 9 independents are contesting the poll that political observers say will be a straight fight between the BLP and the Democratic Labour Party DLP. On the international scene, the World Health Organization WHO has issued a warning to world leaders that the coronavirus pandemic is nowhere near over. Head of WHO, Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus, cautioned against the assumption that the newly dominant Omicron variant is significantly milder and has eliminated the threats posed by the virus. Speaking during a news conference at the WHO's headquarters in Geneva, Dr. Tedros said the narrative that it is a mild disease is misleading. He added that Omicron is causing hospitalizations and deaths, and even less severe cases are inundating health facilities. Dr. Tedros said the Omicron variant had led to 18 million new infections across the world over the past week. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And we head now to a quick break. When we return, we'll have your Midday Sports Report. Renata Brown is standing by.
Welcome back. It's now time for your Midday Sports. There is now some confusion over who is the president of the United Racehorse Trainers Association of Jamaica after Tuesday's election at Caymanas Park. Incumbent Ryan Darby is arguing that he remains president of the body despite Patrick Smelly's 45-8 win over Dale Murphy on Tuesday. But it seemed Darby will have his wish granted, as the Jamaica Racing Commission says it will revert under legal advice, noting that it will also need to review the constitution of Heritage. It's understood that Tuesday's proceedings went ahead based on legal advice that Smelly and his members received. The latest developments now leave Smelly and his elected administrators in a tight spot, as Tuesday's election was observed by a member of the JRC. However, Darby is holding firm that he remains the Heritage president. The Jamaica Football Federation last night confirmed that both upcoming World Cup qualifying home games for the Reggae Boys against Mexico on January 27 and Costa Rica on February 2 will be played without spectators. A statement from the JFF said the government has decided that no spectators will be allowed into the national stadium. As such, matches will be played behind closed doors. The announcement comes as a huge disappointment for Jamaicans after the government had approved 5,000 spectators for the last home game against the United States in November. That decision came after a COVID-19 task force recommended that fully vaccinated persons should be given some allowances to attend live events. In the meantime, the JFF release also confirmed that both games will now start at 7 p.m. In cricket, West Indies head coach Phil Simmons says that cricket in the region must undergo a full restructuring if the team is to compete consistently in international cricket. Since 2011, the Windies have won only 8 of 42 one-day international series, 2 against Ireland and Bangladesh and 1 each against Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Zimbabwe and Afghanistan. The most recent defeat came against Ireland, as the team was well beaten 2-1 in their 3-game series Sunday at Sabina Park. Like captain Karen Pollard, Simmons has identified batting as the main weakness in the team.
Our batting quality is not there. Our thinking when we bat in quality is not there. And it comes from everything comes from lower down. I think if you're coming into our squad and you're averaging 30s, when you come up to the top level, you're not going to average 40 and 50, So we need to, the holistic approach means that all through the runs, even from the under 19 going on now, we have to be looking at preparing people to play at international level.
The Windies will now turn their attention to a T20 series against England starting this weekend in Barbados. And finally, Leicester City will return to Premier League action for the first time in 22 days when they take on Tottenham Hotspur in the EPL at 2:30 today. The game, which will be played at the King Power Stadium, will mark the first match for the Foxes in the league for 2022, with their last EPL outing being a 1-0 win over Liverpool on December 28. For Spurs striker Harry Kane, he will be looking to continue his golden run against Leicester, having scored 16 goals in 17 games against the Foxes in all competitions. In the other game today, Manchester United will play away to Brentford at 3 p.m. And that's it for your Midday Sports Report. Anthony, it's back to you.
Thank you very much, Renardo. And that's the Midday News. I'm Anthony Lugg. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports, and production teams, good afternoon.